If this doesn't make you mad, it might just make you sick. A lot of people are talking about the border crisis right now with all of these illegal immigrants, millions of people pouring over the southern border of the United States of America. But why? Why is there no stopping of this? Why is there no effort from the federal government to slow down or deter these people from coming over the southern border? Well, what you're going to see in this clip is a bombshell accusation from a young man who was interviewed by Charlie Kirk, who explains that not only are the people who are coming over the southern border, not all of them, but many of them are bringing drugs, but also many of them are trafficking human beings. And here's where it gets even crazier. The people that are actually funding this, or at least in partnership with these Mexican cartels that are bringing actual human slaves over the southern border, is none other than the federal government. Could it be true? Let me know what you think in the comments right now, but I'm going to share some interest. I'm going to share this clip from this young man, and then I'm going to share some other data that's going to help make the case that this could actually be very true. And if so, we got to figure out what we're going to do about this. So check this out. Listen to what this young man has to say.
I come from a missionary family to Mexico. We work with cartel members. We see them convert to Christianity, saying how they traffic thousands of children, specifically to Democratic politicians. And they actually said the biggest client for their product is the U.S. government. And that actually exploded under the Biden administration.
Wait, so the cartel...
Wait a second. So young man, missionary, goes to Mexico with his family. They help cartel members who are converting to Christianity, help them in their faith. Cartel members are explaining to them that the number one customer for these people coming over the southern border is actually the federal government, and more specifically, the Democratic Party. I mean, that is a wild claim to make. Is he lying? Listen to what he has to say after this.
And that actually exploded under the Biden administration.
Wait, so the cartels were telling your family they were
directly in prison.
They were trafficking kids to Democrats?
Yes.
So it's legit. Cartels are trafficking kids as sex slaves for Democrats?
Yes.
Is this modern day slavery?
Yes, they are.
So just to give some detail for the audience.
Yes, sir.
You have an 11-year-old girl.
Yes.
What do they do with that girl?
They actually have to hide her. We were in Coahuila, which is where the Zetas were at. They just got eliminated, but they were the biggest traffickers. They actually kind of began to dismantle under the Trump presidency, even for the Mexican government. But the biggest, we've known people that had to leave states, hide them, literally take them, like just completely.
And these girls become prostitutes
100%.
at 12 years old.
Yeah, parents have sold their kids into it just to survive.
So when you hear that 320,000 kids have gone missing under Kamala Harris.
100% accurate. We see thousands and thousands of migrants on top of trains coming across, just destroying everything across the path.
Do they mean America well or harm?
Absolutely harm.
So the cartel works with the American government
100%. So
to bring these kids as sex slaves. Yeah.
Yes.
This is not a joke, everybody.
This is not.
We've been saying this for a long time.
You guys can go. We have Facebook pages and everything.
It's the largest sex slave trade in the world history.
100%.
And Kamala Harris is overseeing it and co-signing it.
So we know that Kamala Harris, she is the quote unquote border czar. She's the current vice president of the United States. Her responsibility was to shut down and secure the southern border. We know that that's not happening. And we wonder why. Why is there so little effort to shut down the southern border? People think, maybe the Democratic Party wants to bring over these illegal immigrants so that they become voters for the Democratic Party. Perhaps that's true. That's one hypothesis. You have this young man making a very bold claim here. I'm going to show you some information that shows that what he's saying might not actually be that far-fetched, but we know that human trafficking is a problem in the United States. And what I'll show you at the end too is a clip from Tim Tebow that shows that the demand for explicit material, especially around children, is 100% likely the reason why there is such a demand, or there's such a supply coming in, because the demand exists. But before we get to the extra data, I want to give you an opportunity to help me fight human trafficking. I have a profile on Minect as a content creator, an entrepreneur, a business coach, as well as a pastor. I've created a Minect profile to help me with my consulting clients so that they can have access to me to ask questions for a very small fee. Now, this is what I'd like for you to do. Click that link that you see in the comments or in the description to ask me any question. You have to pay for it. It's about $10 for a text at this point and $100 for a video response. Ask me any question about your business, your marriage, relationships, your faith, your content, whatever it is, whatever you want. Ask me whatever, because here's what I'm inviting you to do. if you connect me on this platform and you put in that question that you want me to answer for you, hashtag end slavery, 100% of whatever money comes through for that question, I will donate to help fight human trafficking. I have a partner organization that I'm working with right now. I'm going to donate it to. I met them at a recent conference in West Palm Beach, Florida. This is my opportunity for you. For up to the first 500 connectors, people who connect me, either a text message asking a simple question via text or video response, put in that question, end slavery. 100% of the money that comes through for those questions, I will donate to fight human trafficking. So link again in the comments and in the description. Please help me do that. But look at this news title from the New York Post. Look at what it says. Biden-Harris admin loses track of 320,000 migrant children with untold numbers at risk of sex trafficking and forced labor. How do you lose track of 320,000 people? How do you lose track of 320,000 children? Well, it's because there's no policy in place to try to actually slow what's happening. You have people coming in by the truckloads, by the train loads coming over the southern border, and they're filling up all of these sanctuary cities across the country. When we talk about immigration, and yes, I'm all for, legal immigration, but you have to have a process in place, because what you will see happen if you are not wise and you're not strategic and you're not scrutinizing who's coming over the southern border, you will have criminal organizations that exploit that, not just for drugs. We're seeing a massive explosion of fentanyl across the United States. I have a friend who literally just passed away by accidentally overdosing on fentanyl. He was trying to take some other drug. It was laced with fentanyl. Now he's dead. This is happening all over the country, but not just fentanyl. It's also happening with human trafficking. I want to show you this too. This is crazy. This person shared this article from CBS News. Here's the article itself from CBS News. And here's what the article says. This person said, I never understood why this news didn't trigger international headlines, congressional hearings, and prosecutions of U.S. officials. Prosecutors admit that the U.S. signed a cooperation agreement with let me see what that says, Sinaloa cartel leader, dismissed a major case against Sinaloa cartel lawyer Humberto Loya Castro, and agreed to not interfere with the cartel's drug trafficking to the U.S. or actively prosecute their leadership. Let's go a little bit deeper. So this article is by the CBS News. Look at the summary of this. I'll pull up a little AI summarizer for you. Check this out. A Mexican drug suspect awaiting trial in Chicago is making a startling claim. Prosecutors say Vincent Zambada Niebla oversaw drug running on a massive scale into the U.S., but now from behind bars at a maximum security prison in Chicago. He's making his own explosive accusations that U.S. government agents have been aiding Mexico's infamous Sinaloa cartel, even tipping off leaders on how to avoid capture. So here's what this person's saying. Could it be that this is bigger than drug trafficking? Why would this person make the accusation that the U.S. government is actually in cahoots with the cartels of Mexico trafficking over these drugs? This young man over here is saying that it's not just about drugs, it's about humans, it's about children. And we see here from the New York Post that that's not too far from reality. I'm going to share with you this final clip from Tim Tebow to show you why might this be happening. I'm going to share with you my thoughts at the end of this, but Tim Tebow, what he says in this clip is going to startle you.
I want to read one of the chats recently of some of the offenders of what they were saying. This is also filtered, so it can be a little bit more appropriate for today. One of the offenders in the chat asked what the others were into. Next man replied, he was mainly into 5 to 9-year-olds. Another said he was 60 and a very violent man, and no isn't an option for him. One of the offenders then said he has 20 terabytes of baby rape videos, and if they DM him, he would give them to him for a good price. Another offender confirmed and said he would show the others how to abuse his own kids and get away with it. Then another replied he has a daughter that he would love to share. Then the next replied, when asked if his wife knew about his abuse, the man said, heck no, it's our little secret, though I am on the lookout for others as she is getting old now. Next responded, how old is she? The offender said, 8. That's what we're talking about here today. That's why it's so important. That's why we have to be urgent for every single one of these boys and girls.
You might be listening to that and you might be thinking, how on earth could somebody become so depraved? Well, let me tell you, when there was just a statistic that just came out that OnlyFans, the explicit material website where you're able to create your own profile, produce that material yourself, and get paid by consumers, that platform brings in more money. I think it's like $6.5 billion in a year. That platform pays out its creators more than all of the athletes in the NBA combined. Professional sports. The demand for this type of material, not just for kids, but in general, is so high. We've become so desensitized as a culture to our own sexual depravity that now all of a sudden you're having people who are saying, it's not enough to just have this relationship with my wife, or to have this relationship outside of marriage with X amount of partners, or to have this relationship from a distance through a screen with an adult. Now I need something that is going to stimulate me even more. I need something that just is going to push the envelope to a whole other degree. This is what's happening. People don't wake up and decide to make this sort of decision to consume this sort of stuff or demand this sort of stuff. It's because we as a culture have become so depraved. So we have departed so far from God's design for sexual intimacy. We become so immoral that we've seared our own conscience. And this is what people are desiring these days. Is it any surprise to you that at the highest level of our federal government, there is this absolutely mind-blowing hunger and desire for immorality to be promoted and accepted, not just tolerated, but celebrated and legalized, and for anybody to come against it to be prosecuted for standing against people getting a transgender operation? That's what's being talked about and normalized at every level. Why is this so surprising? To me, it would be no surprise if all of this was real at all. I can't definitively say whether or not this guy's accusations are true. But when you have a young man saying this in public, very interesting. When you have the New York Post sharing this information that the Biden-Harris admin has lost track of 320,000 migrant children, when you have the CBS News putting out an article saying that there's a guy who's been arrested as a Mexican drug cartel who's now making accusations that the U.S. government has basically allowed him to do this, why would it be surprising at all? The fact that there's absolutely nothing being done. We look at these people in these political offices and we think that they're perfect, that they're basically demigods. Oh, these are the highest officials in the land. Of course we should trust them. These people are sinners, just like you and me. They've fallen short of the glory of God. They have their own delusional appetites, just like anybody else. Why should we be surprised that these people who have been given absolute power and tons of money are not going to abuse it for their own purposes? And now that they're doing that, possibly doing that and giving themselves over to that, why wouldn't they do everything possible to make sure that they don't get caught for it? Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. But this is why I'm personally so passionate. You're not going to see me turn down the volume on what's happening in the culture right now, what's happening in politics, what's happening in government, what's happening in the entertainment industry. Because here's what I want to encourage you with. All of this was prophesied. Go read Matthew chapter 24. Jesus tells us very clearly what would happen in the last days before he comes back. You would see an increase of lawlessness, an increase of immorality, and you would see the love of many grow cold. That's exactly what we're seeing happen right now. We're seeing lawlessness increase, no accountability for the lawlessness that's occurring, increase of immorality, people desiring things that are just absolutely wicked and depraved, and the love of many growing cold. People not caring, people turning a blind eye to what's happening. But this is why you and I need to care. This is what it says in James chapter 1, verse 27. It says, verse 27 right here, pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their trouble, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. What is God's heart? God's heart is for these children. God's heart is for these women. God's heart is for you, if you're a born again, blood-bought, Holy Spirit-filled believer, is to not turn a blind eye to this sort of thing and say, oh, it doesn't really matter who's in the White House or who's in leadership because Jesus is on the throne. Yes, obviously that's the trump card over everything. God is sovereign, but God has called you and me to be the salt and light of the earth, to expose wickedness and to advance the kingdom of God and to see the captive set free. We have to speak up about this sort of stuff. I'm not saying you share misinformation. I'm not saying you share false accusations. But what I am saying is we got to open our eyes and recognize there is something demonic happening in the world today. And the only people qualified to make a stand against this sort of stuff and speak against this injustice and fix the problem are people who are filled with the Holy Spirit, people whom Jesus gave the promise to, that we would advance against the gates of hell and the gates of hell would not prevail against us, the church of Jesus Christ. But what are you doing? Are you speaking up? Are you being bold? It's time to stop caring about whether people are going to cancel you or not. It's time that we start speaking up about these things, because there are people whose voices have been taken away from them that do not have an advocate. But will you be that advocate? My encouragement to you is that if you will be, you'll be on the right side of history. And what Jesus promises is what you have done for these little ones, you've done it as unto me. I want to encourage you again. If you want to help me, simple invitation, go to my Connect profile. Send me a text message or a voice message, or if you want a voice note back or a video note back, $10 for a text, $100 for a video note. Just simply put in that message, #EndSlavery. 100% of the money that comes this way will go to fight human trafficking for the first 500 Connectors. I can guarantee you that. So please do that. Let's combat this issue together. I'm encouraged, man. Even though there's so much wickedness happening in the world, the future is bright for those who believe in Jesus. But will you do the work that he's called you to do? Let me know what you think in the comments. And also, if you don't know how to have a right-standing relationship with God, if you're convicted about what's happening in the world and you recognize it's time to get right with God, I have another video at the end of this one that you need to watch to learn whether or not you're going to go to heaven or hell when you die. Otherwise, God bless you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.